Bubble released a beta version of their AI app generator earlier this month, and you can ignore it. But one thing that you should check out is this tool, NoCodeFusion, which does let you create an app with AI from a simple prompt and was built by one person. So in this video, I'm going to go through the process of creating an app with NoCodeFusion, showing you some of the config and housekeeping that you're going to have to do along the way, and just giving my general thoughts about what this tool is and whether you should adopt it for your next project. So you start with this now famous sort of text input for generating AI stuff that we see in all kinds of different applications. So I'm going to paste in a prompt here that I've pre-prepared. And I've added a little bit more detail here. I mean, I could just leave it like this, but I've given it a little bit more detail because I figure that's probably how most of us are going to be using this. It's still fairly simple. I'm describing a couple of data types that I want to have, projects and tasks, and a relationship between them, right? A task can belong to a project, and also some of the fields that a task should have. A little bit of guidance about what kind of interface that I want to see here. So a dashboard page with a few different tabs, and also having a user account information section. I would assume that if I just left it like this, it would probably have added a bunch of that stuff that I've asked it specifically for, like a dashboard page, projects and tasks, data types. It would probably make that stuff for us, but let's see how it does with a little bit of specific guidance, because in most cases, that's gonna be what you want to do, right? Very rarely are you going to just put something in with a one-liner unless it's just for demonstration purposes. And you can see what NoCodeFusion has done here is create a more detailed app scope from that description. So you can actually edit this now to get the sort of precise generation that you're looking for. You can see that what it's done is it's created a whole bunch of things called user stories. So if you haven't come across them before, it's a standardized format for describing what an application should do. So you use this convention of saying, as this type of user, I want to be able to do X kind of behavior. I think I'm just going to hit generate from this and just see how this behaves. And we can make amendments in the editor, in the Bubble editor that is, once we are done. So NoCodeFusion is going to go ahead in the background and create this application for us. So I'm going to come back in a few minutes and see how it's gotten on. So it's finished. That took about 6 minutes. Apparently we've got a few different things created for us here, database types, pages. So what we need to do is actually create a brand new Bubble application, and we need to be on a paid plan. I've just jumped straight on a free trial. And then we head over to this general section and we scroll all the way to the bottom. And we've got this option here to import an application. So NoCodeFusion gives us this .bubble file here, which you need to download to your computer. So this .bubble file is an entire Bubble application represented in code, specifically in JSON format, which is a format you might have heard of before. If you were to open up that Bubble file, you would just see all of this, which obviously we don't really need to make sense of this, right? But just to show you what's actually happening there under the hood. And if we have that kind of file, we can import it into the Bubble editor so that we can start making changes within the Bubble editor. So we're going to upload that file here, and this is going to take a few minutes here, so I'll come back when this is finished. So that took less than 2 minutes, and then the editor refreshed. The next instruction is that we have to use this optimize application feature, which again, we can find under general. All the way down the bottom, we've got optimize application, and as per the instructions with NoCodeFusion as they are right now. So let's see what we're dealing with. We've got 7 issues. So NoCodeFusion right now, and Peter, the founder, has acknowledged this. It's always going to have some amount of issues when you go through this, but the process of going through and fixing these issues, the time it's going to take you to do that is going to be much less than it would be to build this whole application from scratch. I think it's a small price to pay, and it's only going to get better from here. I won't look into these right now because I want us to actually first have the context about what is our app structure, what's our database structure. Let's start with a database actually. So you can see it's created those 2 main data types that we wanted to have, right? A project and a task. And I think it's done everything that we want it to have in here. We've got the ability to add a file, a name, a description field when it's due. And there's this relationship with a project, which is great. Also a relationship with this task status thing. That looks to be an option set. So we can set a default value here, probably to do. If we look at the option sets, we have, we've got a task status. That's great. We've also got a project status, which is interesting. So that's something that we didn't necessarily ask for in our original prompt. And then we've got a user role as well. Just one, it just says user. Let's probably make this a little bit more descriptive. So this process is essentially you going through and just cleaning up a few little things. We've got a really good starting point here, but we might want to just finesse a few things. We've got a color option set, not quite sure what that is for. Let's go back to our data types. We've got that project. One thing I'm noticing here is that a project has a list of tasks on it. That's a relationship we probably don't want to have. We don't want to have a project holding on to what is potentially an infinite list of tasks. That's just going to bloat the project object in our database. So better to have the relationship go the other way, which we do have, where a task points back to a project. So I know I'm not going to need this relationship, so I'm just going to delete it. And it looks like we don't have any privacy rules set either. So that's something that we're going to have to set up for all of these data types. But okay, that's still fairly nice, like to have all of this existing. But really, what's great about where NoCodeFusion is with this app generator right now is the UI. So if we have a look here, on the index page, we don't have anything, but we do have a login page. And if I was to open that up, you can see that it has logic already built in to be able to switch between these two forms. We can see what it gives us here in this group main content, then probably inside of group mode. Yep. And then we've got two forms, sign-in form and a register form. If I go and inspect the workflows here, we've got a log, a user in action already pre-created and with the fields in this action being mapped to the relevant inputs on our interface. And then we've got a register action as well, which is going to sign the user up. And yeah, that seems fairly straightforward. Probably don't need to set a slug for the user, and it's got an empty field anyway. I'm just going to remove that, I think. So let's just go through and test this out and see if we can try to understand the app by going through it here as a real user. You can see that this is one thing that we probably want to change. Like, we don't want the user to be deciding what role that they are necessarily, not in the simple app. So we can remove that drop down, but I'll just leave it there for now. So I've just registered and nothing happened. If I refresh the page, yeah, still nothing happened. So let me see, do I have a user in my database? First and foremost, yes, I do. So why was I not navigated? We've got a user is logged in action here, which should have fired, but look, okay, so it looks like we're trying to go to a dynamic page and the expression here is broken. So if we look at this, we've got the current user's role, and it looks like the way this is set up is every user role has a default page name. So we could say here where we want to send the user to. This is probably something that's going to be fixed. This is going to be broken because we've got spaces in the name here. I actually don't want to use this method. So I'm actually just going to remove this, and I'm going to navigate the user portal page just specifically within this action. So if I reload this, we should now be on the portal page. Okay, we do user portal. So that's obviously this guy here, user portal. And let's see if the navigation logic works. Okay, lovely. Okay, so that's working right out of the box. And it looks like it's working via a tab parameter in the URL. That's fine. That's good enough for now. I would prefer to use URL paths here. So I would prefer to have something like user portal /projects. But this method for now is just going to be fine. That at least just lets us get things set up. And I don't know about any of this other stuff. Like if I add a new here, okay, it creates a new pop-up for me, projects, add new, okay, tasks. So rather than, well, let's just try it. Shall I just try and create a project? Let's just see if it works. My AI app maybe. Interestingly enough, it's added here a date range picker, which I was not expecting. Oh, well, let's just see if it works, and then we can go and actually look at how this is set up. So if I hit save here, wow, okay, so in my database now, I have, yep, I've got a project set up. Okay, well, we've got some things broken. The start and end dates were not set appropriately, but I do have, if I edit it, okay, this is actually launching the pop-up with the project that was created. If I maybe just create another one, a test project, and save that, well, I can edit my AI app. And yeah, so it's populating the pop-up dynamically. So that's really good. So let's actually see what this page looks like here. We've got the user portal page. We've got a sidebar here, and it looks like these tab options are probably going to be inside of here. And look here, we've got a repeating group. So again, this is clearly something that we're going to want to set up ourselves. This is set up right now to, as a repeating group, this is holding a list of texts. And I assume that our group main content down here, okay, group main contents, everything's in a reusable element. Each one of our tab groups that inhabits this space here is a reusable element, which is lovely. And I assume if I look at each one of these, it's going to have some kind of conditional rule, yeah, which says, look, get tab from page URL is tasks or is settings. But this is just like a static text value, which I guess this is fine as just like a starting point, but I'm going to want to change that. But I'm just going to not do that right this second. I just want to see how the rest of this app is set up. Let's just take a quick look at what is in the rest of these reusable elements. So let's just start with the projects section here, which is obviously in its own reusable element. And we can try to figure out where that bug was coming from. So if I click on this button, I assume I'm going to show a pop-up. But where is that pop-up? I'm going to right-click, reveal the element. And oh, so this is interesting. The pop-up is appearing here within a group that's on the page within the normal layering of the page hierarchy. That pop-up should actually be, it should live in the overlay section. Can I drag it out? No, I can't drag it out. So that's one little strange quirk we might have to deal with. Okay, so if I just cut this and then paste it at the main page level here, it's probably going to break all my workflows. Yes, it has. So I don't want to cut it because I'm going to lose all the workflows. And this is annoying. I'm going to have to copy it with workflows and then paste with workflows. And there it is in the overlay section. And then I'll just remove the original, I think, or at least let's just look first at the actions that are on it. And so we have to do maybe a manual migration here. So this is my pop-up add old. And what I'll do is just go through and just attach all of the actions that are looking at this pop-up add old to the new pop-up, the one that we just copied. And I only did that, I mean, I could have just left it all within the layer. I just thought, let's just start as we mean to go on, get our page hierarchy set up in an ordered way. So there's a little bit of this sort of cleanup that we have to do, but I don't consider this to be a major, because what we are getting in return is having a whole interface, all the UI elements, all of the styles, all of the database objects, everything just set up for us. So to do this little bit of housekeeping, I consider worth it. And again, I assume that this is all going to get much better over time. This is still a beta feature, this app generation feature. And then so pop-up add old, let's delete that. Let's make sure that this button on our projects page is, oh yeah, it is showing the new pop-up ad. So that's great. And we know that we have a bug with this probably. When we hit the save button, yeah, we're not setting these values correctly. Air date time picker, that would be this guy here. So this is really interesting. This is a plugin, air date time picker, right? So this is not a bubble plugin. This is a plugin by a third party, Zero Code. And obviously the app generation has installed this plugin for us as part of its generation. So it's set to be a range. So I guess this would just be a matter of, well, we'll just try and see if we can grab the I guess it would be the selected ranges start. There we go. And the selected ranges end. That should probably fix it. Let's see, go back to projects, just create something arbitrary here, hit save and see if that fixed it in the database, and it did. Okay, so there's a little bit of cleanup like this that we might want to do. We've obviously got 12 issues up here, and this might just be a matter of us jumping through the different sections in our app and seeing how they are set up. We've got another one here within the projects tab. For some reason, this is coming up as invalid, but yeah, this is one of those issues that isn't an issue. Like I just clicked on it and it actually disappeared from the issue tracker. So that's best case scenario. Let's look at the tasks section now, and we've got a broken connection here. The type of content is a user. We're looking at the parent group's tasks. So I guess that would be the parent group's tasks creator. So this is something that I really love about NoCodeFusion, is that you obviously have this built-in creator field, which is a user, but a really good practice is to have a separate created by field on every data type, because if you ever need to do any kind of reassignment of objects in your database, it was created or assigned to one user and you need to move it to another, or if you need to import data, if you're going to import data from the backend, your backend's not going to know who's the current user, who's going to be assigned to this field. So you want to be able to have that control over who actually is the creator user for anything. And NoCodeFusion is actually built with that best practice in mind. Yes, the creator field is there, but it also has this created by field, which is user defined, right? This is defined by the developer, not a built-in field that Bubble's created for us. So I love that. We're going to use that field. And I assume that if we create a task, so we've got, let's see, we've got the pop-up, which I assume is also going to be nested in the elements hierarchy here. Yes, it is. Okay, but we know how to change that, so I'll just skip over that. I'll do that myself later when you guys aren't watching. If we're going to create a task, okay, so that create a task action doesn't actually have any fields set. So that's something that we know we're going to have to do. We're going to have to set up an action that maps all of these fields to the relevant fields on the task when it's created. I could just go add new fields and then fill in all of these guys. So created by, this is that field I was just talking about. We'd set that to be the current user. And then all these other ones, like I assume, okay, it's not named that well. We should have okay, so these inputs don't have nice names. So this is another little bit of housekeeping that we have to do. You see our project pop-up was nicely set up in terms of the UI, the inputs, and it was mapped to the create action. Not so for this tasks pop-up, unfortunately. So we do have to set this up ourselves. So we've got the input task, name, input task, description, and so on. The drop down here for status, that should really be pointing to that option set of task statuses that we have defined. But you can see just having the UI here already is a massive leg up. And then if we go back to our save action, let's now map all these fields to the various input values. And then it obviously already has the actions for resetting and animating a pop-up. So I wonder, on the tasks page, in the tasks section rather, if we look at what we have, we've got a repeating group of tasks and there's no filters attached. So we probably want to make sure that's only looking for tasks that are created by the current user. We also need to set up privacy rules, but that's okay. We don't need to get this 100% set up right now. I just want to show you what's there. And we've also got this expression, which is hiding the repeating group when it doesn't have anything in it. And we've got this empty state value, which has the inverse condition. That's why we're seeing this here. So presumably if I create a new task now, and okay, so that's okay. These three dots don't work. We've got a little bit of problem with the mapping there. I do have a filter, but that's not mapped up as well. Okay, so we've got a few UI elements here that are connected in terms of the navigation, but they're not mapped to the data structure fully yet. So we have a little bit of housekeeping there to do, like this button filter here, which is it's going to show our pop-up for filters. If we look at that pop-up for filters, we obviously have here this drop down that isn't configured to show any particular task statuses. So we'd have to configure that ourselves. And because this is AI generating this app, like you can get different degrees of completeness for the app that's generated here, depending on the particular generation that you do. You can get two different apps from the same prompt essentially. Right, and then you'd want to add a workflow here for managing the filter logic. There's a few things that we want to do, and I'd probably here just use like a display list and then do a search for those tasks created by the current user, and then where the status is equal to that drop down value status. We need to make sure that drop down has some kind of name, drop down status filter, but regardless, this is pretty good. Drop down status filters value, and then probably hide this pop-up as well, hide this pop-up filter. So if I have another task here, let's say I've got some other stuff I need to do and I'm in the middle of doing it. And if I now try to filter by status, then yeah, that works. Probably need to have a way to reset the filter, but to a large degree, this is set up how we want it to. Our dashboard view has a few tasks here appearing. And we've got a few issues I noticed that are actually attached to this dashboard page. I wonder if I just clear this out for now. Yeah, that's going to solve it. So some of these issues aren't really necessarily issues. You can just clear them out. Other ones, it's just missing a simple last little mapping here. Like we're trying to display projects through a drop down, but we don't have a field set for the caption. So we just need to choose some value there. These aren't major issues. This dashboard page, interestingly, actually has a workflow to create a task, and it has a simplified create a task pop-up here. But that's duplication that I don't want. I already have a pop-up for creating a task that's living inside of my tasks reusable here. What I probably actually just do, I'm just going to remove this pop-up altogether, and that's going to remove a bunch of these issues just right out of the gate. And then we've still got this issue that we need to fix for the user who created a task, which is fine. This can be the parent group's task status probably. And just like that, we've removed all of our issues. Now this 3-dot menu, is there a group focus on this page? No, there's not. Sometimes there is, but this is one of those places where you can just use the extension in order to make changes. So we've got the NoCodeFusion extension over here, and there's a whole bunch of components that I could add in here. One of which, let's just try and search it, see if we can find it. Icon menu. So we can just copy that with workflows. And then we've got this little guy here, group icon. I'm actually going to click on its parent container and I'm going to paste with workflows. And oh, is it adding it as a reusable element? Okay, so this is going to be our, call this our focus menu task. And that's actually going to add this 3-dot menu with a workflow to show the group focus. And inside of this group focus, we've got buttons that actually launch these two kind of default pop-ups. So we could just like configure this for our use case here. But what is even potentially more interesting is inside of this extension, we've got the AI generator here. I wonder if I send it my database schema so it actually knows what I'm looking for here. And do we want to have thinking mode on? I'm not sure, but let's just say if I want to have create a 3-dot focus menu for a task that lets me edit and delete a task. No idea whether this is going to work or not. Okay, so if we copy with workflows, let's see if this works. I'll paste it here inside of, where does my 3-dot menu live? Yeah, okay, so we'll paste it inside of this group column, paste with workflows. And actually it doesn't look like there's any workflows attached. Let's see, maybe I can, let's add thinking mode and say, you need to add the workflows for the menu and pop-ups. Let's just see if we can fix it that way. Okay, so we can't do that right now with NoCodeFusion. The best that I can do is to paste in the action. But that's interesting because I know that there are some places where the database structure can be mapped. So if I say here, create a pop-up for editing a task, and I went thinking mode here just to make sure as much as I can that it understands the prompt. Let's copy that and let's paste it at the page level here, paste with workflows. And okay, so it's added the pop-up again, but this is the same pop-up that the JSON actually created more or less because it's using the same database schema. All of these inputs are actually pulling from their parent group's thing, albeit it's a little broken. We'd have to map this up. I could probably just change all of these to point to if we look at the pop-up itself, should probably have a task, which probably should be of type task. And then all of these groups holding on the inputs, I could probably just point that to the pop-up tasks task, right? So the UI can be generated according to the database structure. So that's really helpful for forms. It hasn't gone as far as adding in an action for us to actually save data to the database, but still, for the purposes of getting UI quickly set up, this is really helpful. I am just going to remove this because I only created that just for demonstration purposes. And we know that we actually probably need to use here the 3-dot menu that we created via the extension. And that does actually have some of the workflows that we need in it. But I probably want to put it at the top of the group. So I'm going to put these two guys at the top in a row container, call that the group task header. And I'm going to put my focus menu inside of that, but on the far end. And if I now preview this, nope, that's not what we want. We need to turn off fit width to content for both of these guys so that we are ensuring, and maybe fit width to content for the focus group. We're ensuring that they are equally going to all share that top space. And no, we're still not getting this right. That would be the reason there. This minimum width on the header group is not helpful. We remove that. Yeah, now we get the behavior that we want. We get these two guys appearing, and now we have basically like some boilerplate for showing and hiding these relevant sections, right? So if I was really going to be setting this up properly, I would be looking at that pop-up for creating a task. So pop-up, add task. I would be turning this into a reusable element. So I would be going convert to reusable element. We call it the pop-up create edit task, and probably also want to give it a type of content, which is a task, so that we can feed it. And that means that we'd be able to set all of these fields accordingly. So this group paste, this could be the group task form, right? And then what we want to be doing is like setting all the initial content here to the pop task and then the various fields, right? We can go through and set that up. That's quite straightforward. And then what I would want to do is put this pop-up inside of our new focus group menu for a task. So we've got this existing pop-up, but I actually want to put in here my pop-up for creating, editing a task. And then we've got the actions here for showing and hiding the old pop-up, right? We can just reattach them to our new pop-up. Okay, so that's, yeah, it's slightly tedious, I will admit, but like I said earlier, I still think this is way easier than creating all of this stuff from scratch. And the last one that we have to remap is this one. And that means I can get rid of the original add edit pop-up, and we've got create edit a task instead, which means that the last thing that we would do is when that edit button is clicked, that we are going to, oh look, create edit a thing. That's a nice thing that we're doing here. We're adding the pop-up, but we also want to, before we do that, we want to display a task in the pop-up, right? So this is a focus menu for a task. So we would need to set the type of content here to be a task. And then we would need to take the focus menu's task, which isn't appearing because I only just set the data source here on focus menu task. Sometimes we need to refresh the page after we do that. And now let's see if we go and try and display data. We should have access to the focus menu tasks task. Okay, great. And as long as now on the list of tasks where we have this 3-dot menu, we are taking the current cell's task, or rather the parent group's task in this context, and feeding that into the 3-dot menu, then this should all be hooked up. Let's see, hit that, hit edit, boom. My point about going through all that process is just to demonstrate like the degree that you will need to make some changes here. And look, we've still got some issues here on the settings page, logging out logic that doesn't seem to be connected, or at least it's not logging, it's not navigating the user away. So I'd say the main benefit right now for this app generator is getting an app set up with all of the pages and navigation. That is really the big level up here. And then having a design system that you can iterate on, because you have the Chrome extension here that is then going to allow you to just plop any elements that you want from the extension into the existing app that you have, and it's all using the same design system, so it's all going to look cohesive. So I would say right now this tool can save you a bunch of time. Is it going to save you more time than if you used another design kit with a whole bunch of design components in it? I would say yes, it would if you're starting from scratch, just because you've got enough connections between UI, forms and the database to give you that kind of like extra little step up. But it's not a huge amount more. You're still gonna need to do a lot of housekeeping, as I think I've demonstrated here. But remember, this is a tool that's still in beta. It's only gonna get better from here. It is miles better than Bubble's own native AI assist app generator, which you can just ignore, just scrub that one off. Hopefully they'll acquire NoCodeFusion and that will become the official AI app generator for Bubble. But I still think, yeah, if you're starting a new app from scratch today, this is going to be a really solid option for you. Now, it's still a very young tool, so I don't know how many different apps have used it yet, but I do know that one very popular app, which is NQU Secure, a security auditing tool for Bubble, has used the NoCodeFusion generator to create its interface. So it is a very solid option out there. It's built with best practices in mind. And I think if you're starting a new app from scratch today, unless there's another design kit that you really like and you're already very familiar with Bubble, you could do a lot worse than starting your next project with NoCodeFusion.